You know, they call this the Indy 500 Open Test, but more and more, and as the years go on, it feels more and more like the first 2 days of the month of May. No more so than this year. 34 cars, all 34 cars that are going to be on the Indianapolis 500 entry list, going for the 33 spots, turned laps today here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway under beautiful weather. It's something that we haven't had in so long, and we expect that same beautiful weather tomorrow. So we had a pretty decently packed day of running today. A little bit less running than maybe we would have expected at the beginning of the day, as there was a little bit of a technical snafu with the timing and scoring, as well as the caution lights around the racetrack. That was quickly sorted though, and we got down to business. And that business, of course, was essentially the first day of practice for the Indianapolis 500. And of course, this year it's a little bit different because all of the cars this year are equipped with the hybrid system. Both Chevy and Honda have the spec hybrid unit on the race car. We saw some mechanical issues with those today, but we also saw our first glimpse of what these cars are going to be capable of on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with a little bit more weight and hopefully a little bit more power. Well, at least today we didn't see a massive difference or a massive speed increase over last year. Last year, as you can hear, Helio Castroneves going by. He was in the top 10 today. Scott Dixon at the top of the speed charts today at 225.182 miles an hour. That's some 3 miles an hour off of Josef Newgarden's top speed last year at over 228. Speaking of Josef Newgarden, he was second, the twice defending winner at 225 miles an hour. And Takuma Sato, Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. We know Takuma, of course, with his 2 Indy 500 wins, is always so very strong, but it looks like he's allowed Rahal to take even a step further, at least for now. Marcus Armstrong in the 4th position today at 224.9, and Colton Herta rounding out the top 5 at 224.8. And of course, you know, it's kind of tough to gauge 100% right now last year's speeds versus this year's speeds, even with the 100-pound extra weight of the hybrid, as well as a little bit of a horsepower boost that hybrid gives us, because the conditions were a lot different today versus this test 1 year ago. It was overcast last year, a little bit cooler. Of course, it rained out, which really kind of screwed a lot of teams last year. So those are typically better conditions for speed, or at least outright speed. Today we saw much more consistent, much more May-like day, or at least a day that was probably closer and more representative of race day than we have in the past, and the speed isn't that much slower. That being said, tomorrow morning, and this is a newfangled idea here, which I don't think is the worst idea in the world, we are going to see the drivers, all 34 if they so choose, get an opportunity to run with the qualifying boost level. Typically that's only reserved for the Friday before qualifying, as well as the 2 days of qualifications here at the Indianapolis 500. Now, of course, the big question we all have is not only what are the speeds going to be with more weight with the hybrid, but also we're going to have some answers to who's going to be quick in qualifying trim. And perhaps more importantly, because of course someone's going home in the month of May this year, who's going to be slow, or who's going to be on the bubble, or who's going to be in trouble or danger of being on the bubble. And that's very interesting. Also interesting today, something that I don't think a lot of insiders necessarily expected. A lot of us have heard throughout the paddock, throughout the offseason, that Chevy's made some serious gains on their engine, particularly on the top end, which would, of course, help you at a high RPM racetrack like the Indianapolis 500. But for some reason today, 9 of the top 10 overall in the speed charts and 8 of the top 10 in the no-toes were Hondas. Very curious. But Helio Castroneves had an answer for us in the post-race press, or the post-practice press conference today. Helio thinks the Chevys are sandbagging. Kyle Larson, of course, he's a huge story. He always is anywhere he goes, particularly at a race like the Indianapolis 500. It was his first time in an Indy car since his Rookie of the Year run in the Indy 500 last year. Of course, he came back here in a stock car and won the Brickyard 400, the first driver to win the Brickyard after racing in the Indianapolis 500 in the same year. I spoke to Kyle Larson today. He was 11th on the speed charts, 223.4 miles an hour. But I wanted to ask him about knocking the rust off in an Indy car. What is that like after not being in this fast of a car all year long?
You mentioned the process of knocking the rust off throughout the day. It looked like you were getting more confident in traffic as the day went on. Just kind of describe that process of kind of reacclimatizing yourself to the speed of an Indy car.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, like the ROP it's funny, for guys who've done it racing this race 10 plus years, but like for me I actually, and I'm curious what they think too. I'm sure that, they probably enjoy not having to go wide open right away. So yeah, it was nice to build into it. And then, but once you kind of break through that like barrier of running wide open for a full lap, it everything kind of slows down quickly, and you can trust everything a little bit better. But then, yeah, once you get in traffic, just kind of like feeling the runs in the air and all that is a challenge. My balance wasn't where I would have liked it to be. So that made traffic really tough for me. I couldn't really be close to anybody. I felt like we got a little bit better there at the end, but I think that was more the track temp probably coming down. Um, so yeah, that's an area where I think we need to work quite a bit on is the traffic balance, which I'm sure everybody probably would love to be, perfect in traffic, but that's hard to do here. So, but we'll see. Like I said, we'll go back and have a debrief with the teammates, see what they felt, see if anything what I'm feeling is similar to what they are. I would imagine it probably is. And yeah, talk through it and just try and get better as a team and just communicate well.
So there were actually quite a few issues here today. Certainly, you can't say that the boys weren't trying. Graham Rahal, late in the day, got into the wall on the outside of turn number 3. A really, really good save by Graham to keep that thing from being a lot worse than it was. But that was the only incident of wall contact today. Early in the day, it was Jack Harvey who suffered a hybrid failure. I confirmed that with the folks over at Chevrolet. And we spoke to Jack just after that hybrid failure, though Jack and the Dry and Rainbow team did actually get out back onto the racetrack later today.
I guess it happens, right? Like I know there's no thought other than it's unfortunate. It's pretty unfortunate timing to happen on the first lap, and first time driving a Chevy, first time racing with Dry and Reinbold and Cusick, but like that's why we're here. Ultimately, if this was happening on the first week of actual practice in May, you're probably sweating. But I think there's a good chance that we might get out, this afternoon again at some point. Obviously, we've still got tomorrow, and as far as I'm concerned, to be able to even just be at the track, fire suit on, that's pretty cool. And I've done this disco dance in May before. Like I feel like I've experienced May in a whole variety of ways, and these kind of days, like I already said to the team, that perspective is helpful today because you don't panic. You just it happens. You just prep the car again and go again.
And the other mechanical issue today, well, there were a couple. Rinus VeeKay didn't get out till very late with this Honda-powered Coin Dallara, and then Santino Ferrucci, confirmed again by the folks over at Chevy, had an engine failure, and they're not sure what the cause is at the moment. They have to get that back to Ilmore and Detroit to determine that. But Santino actually had a pretty interesting theory on actually losing some track time today. I think you should hear it.
No, we were going to break for lunch, and well, it does two things. We were going to break for lunch and follow a run plan that we were pretty adamant about. Now we get to go back, break for lunch, really sit down, go deep with this car, and we completely changed our run plan and the way we want to change and go with the set-it. So I think it's actually going to help us because we got a chance to really sit down and think about it instead of making any rash decisions. So I'm not overly mad.
And Santino Ferrucci was able to get back out onto the racetrack today. The speed came pretty quickly, so I wouldn't worry too much about our old boy Santino. The hybrids, this is something that obviously is the biggest story going into the month of May this year. Every car, as I've mentioned, is equipped with a hybrid system that debuted last year at Mid-Ohio. Yes, there is a weight penalty, 100 pounds, but there is a power advantage as well that you gain from regenning and deploying the hybrid. Now, there were all sorts of different answers from the drivers, and you're about to hear some of those about whether or not the hybrid is or is not going to help this race. But certainly, I think that it's going to be a very, very key story. Not only are you going to have the reliability, which we've already dealt with today, we've also dealt with it ever since the hybrid debuted. But how much is this going to affect the racing? How much is the weight going to factor in? We've noticed that especially on the road courses. And there were some drivers that gave some very, very wildly different answers. I'll let you kind of decide which ones are kind of schnookering us right now and which ones are telling the truth. Have you felt much of a difference with the extra hybrid weight, or has it really kind of surprised you that it's, all right, well, what's it like?
It's there.
Well, how does that change the vehicle dynamics?
Doesn't make it better.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, shockingly, it's not that different with the weight. At Indy here, that's my opinion and initial read. I was here in October, which was nice to get a feel. I do think the hybrid, though, is going to be it's going to be a bigger influence in this race than any other race that we've been a part of, just because of the nature of this track. We've now got the longest straightaways, you got the least amount of drag on the car. When you actually use the hybrid power, it makes a big difference here on what it does. So I just think the utilization of that is going to come into play much more in this race than we've seen, since the introduction. And from that standpoint, it's kind of interesting coming into the month of May.
I would say so. Interesting as well. We've got the extra boost tomorrow. What are kind of your expectations there? I assume a lot of people are expecting the sandbags to come out.
I don't think so. I mean, I think you'll see teams, there's still going to be qualifying prep where they're going to go through the motions. They're going to try and produce fast laps. Maybe not the ultimate quickest. You're not going to run every bit of qualifying speed that you have in it. That's the nature of racing. I think it's going to be expected from everybody, but we're going to be out here trimming the cars out. I think most people will. Maybe not putting it on the edge, but getting it close to it so we get an idea of where the car's at before we come back next month.
Have the dynamics changed much with the extra weight? I know they have on the road courses, but you obviously haven't run in traffic that much yet with the low drag, but what does it feel like?
Yeah, I need a little bit more time, honestly, to fully assess the race conditions with the car. 100 pounds is a lot of weight. It's not insignificant whatsoever. Early running, it's not crazy different, but I think when you get a pack of 30 cars out there at one time and it's hot like today is, track temp was 115 when we just stopped. We'll see where it cools to this afternoon. But when you get a big pack and you're trying to run 30 laps at a time, I think the weight's going to have more effect in that type of condition than it is running 5 or 10 laps by myself. So, yeah, right now it seems pretty similar to last year, but I think managing the car over a stint, the way you use the hybrid, those things are going to be very different to what we experienced in 24.
So far, I wouldn't really say it feels lazier in a sense, but I think other than that, there's no particular different feeling. For me, it's also a different car. I've never driven this car without the hybrid, so it feels normal to me in that sense. But obviously, I'll go back and pick Patter's brain on that.
What are you thinking about for tomorrow with the qualifying boost? I mean, are you expecting that that's going to feel much different, or is that going to be kind of similar to what we've experienced in the past?
I mean, it's supposed to be a qualified simulation, right? So I don't see a reason why we won't see at least some excitement as we would on qualifying day. But I think it's a nice opportunity for every team, even for the engine manufacturers, just to go out there and kind of get an idea of what to expect for the month of May, and even for you guys, so you can have your right picks.
Yeah, not a ton difference, at least in those speeds we're doing so far. It doesn't feel like you can feel it a ton. Maybe when we go up to qualifying speed, that will be interesting tomorrow with the quality boost, if it sort of moves around a bit more with extra weight. Also, it gets you a little bit more busy behind the wheel with the sort of deploy and regen. But I don't think it's going to change the things too much.
Yeah, they feel a little bit boggier. So, I mean, you really... You feel the weight in some of the road and street courses, but you really feel it here on this oval in particular. You can tell short ovals we race more horsepower, which is great. Here with this lower boost setting, the 1.3 or whatever they call it, it takes a long minute to get this thing up to speed now in the back. So, like I said, I'd wish and would love to run the high boost.
So what do you think that's going to do to the vehicle dynamics during the race? Is it going to change it much from the way we saw it last year?
I don't know yet. So, I mean, everybody's also progressing their setups. So the racing will be tighter. I mean, I feel like IndyCar's done a good job with the racing so far. It's the talent pool's way up. There's also been no cautions this year, so a green flag 500 would be a new one. I hope not, but it'd be a testament to the fastest 500 miles we may ever see. So it'd be cool.
That.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely feels different. But I think every team has such a different philosophy, and like in our situation, you know, the JHR guys have really never had any oval drivers in their car. So I think the philosophy as soon as I get in is very different. So anything that I've driven before. And like when I was at Dreyer last year, like those guys are very good at Indy, like, and that kind of philosophy I was kind of used to. So for me, it's about, all right, how do we get this car into more of a window that I think delivers performance here? Because I think I've felt a lot of good cars here, and has Stingray as well. So yeah, so I think these 2 days are more about just tuning to kind of what we need and what we've felt in the past, and then we'll see what happens. But right now it's so different that I can't even tell that if it's just the hybrid or not. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's just because I'm in a new environment, really.
It feels different. It feels a bit tougher. I mean, it doesn't help. Whenever you add weight into a racing car, it's not going to help. Sure. But I don't think it made it really bad, or I don't think it made such a big difference as street or road courses when you have like slow speed corners and then suddenly it feels like super lazy, or you don't get like the quick changes of direction that we used to have. So it doesn't change as much here, but it's for sure not helping.
I know you haven't had that many laps, but traffic, I mean, that's something that I think we've noticed a lot on the road and street course especially, has been when dirty air becomes a factor, seems like the car really slows down. Yep. So have you noticed that very much here on the oval, or you just not had enough laps yet?
Not had enough, but I think it's actually going to be the opposite. At least for what I got to feel in October when I tested with some other people, and it was the first time with a hybrid. Just kind of gave you another tool when you're like third or fourth in line to try and attack somebody, while before we were like kind of stuck and you didn't have enough straight line to overtake. So I'm hoping and I wish that it's going to be the way I'm thinking, but I think it's actually going to help. And it's not going to be like road and street courses where we see that it's tougher to pass. I think it's going to make it easier when you're third and fourth.
Yeah, very interesting discussion, I think. Obviously, Alexander Rossi, not a big fan of the hybrid, but a guy like Alex Palou saying something like, hey, I can use this to pass from fourth or third, and that's something, if you remember all the way back to, I think it was one of my videos I did about the 2020 Indy 500 with Colton Herta. Colton explained 5 years ago that the biggest problem with the racing right now is that you can't pass from third or fourth. So if Palou is right, and you can use the hybrid to pass from third or fourth, that means we might be in for a much more competitive race, and that's my positivity for the day. Tomorrow, it's going to be fantastic, I think. We not only get the qualifying boost, we get to see some real big speeds, although we're not sure exactly how big the speeds are. We might be, prepare to be like low 230s, maybe high 220s. I don't think we're going to see 234 tomorrow. Of course, I could eat my hat too. I mean, that'll happen. Also got something really cool happening at the IMS Museum tomorrow. We'll have a lot more details on that forthcoming. You're going to want to see it. There's no doubt about it. And we're really going to have our first real read. I mean, we got a little bit of a read today. I mean, it looks like maybe Rahal has found a little bit of the speed they were lacking last year. Of course, there's going to be the question of whether or not Chevy is sandbagging or not, or whether Honda's legit with their pace that they've shown so far. Meyer-Shank looks good. Ganassi looks good. And, of course, Josef Newgarden. I mean, at this point, if you're not betting for Josef Newgarden, I don't know what you're doing, because, yes, no one's won 3 Indy 500s in a row yet, but I think Josef Newgarden could definitely do that. But we're definitely going to have a good gauge on the drivers and teams that are going to be vying for the pole position here in a couple of weeks, as well as the drivers who might be on the outside looking in when the gun goes off on Sunday. Do they do a gun here anymore? I don't remember. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I don't know. I still live in 1995, as you guys know. So we'll be back here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for a second day of Indy 500 practice here in April. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more of this content, and I'll see you in the next video.